being played in a restaurant, and you wouldn't have seen. Women would have had to have sat in a separate partition section of the restaurant, and the men would have been separate again. So it's definitely, they've got this big. It's called Saudi Arabia Vision 2030. So they're trying to live themselves before then. So there are things that you would expect and you see, and there are things that I didn't expect to see that they have or they don't do what they do. So I came here with an open mind. So I kind of deliberately stayed away from forums and websites because I didn't want to get like a false impression before I came. So very, very top down. Everything is very top down. It's not very there's not much bottom up movement or democratic stuff. So at work, the culture is very. I get in my contract that my shirts cannot be drip dried; they have to be ironed, and that's the level of detail. And then when you get observed, they have an assessment criteria. The observer, and this is are your shoes polished? Are your trousers pressed? And I'm like, come on, man, we got to play the game.
Different standards, isn't it? Different.
Yeah, I've joined on something that's a bit more kind of pertinent to the podcast. I've joined up with there's a couple of Facebook groups. So I've joined Heavy Metal in Arabia. That covers like Bahrain, UAE, and Saudi. And there's some interesting stuff on there. And there's a couple of female-only metal bands in Riyadh, which I'm going to try and reach out to because I think that would be very interesting to get some kind of discussion going with them.
Yeah.
And I found out, there's actually, they're opening record stores now. So there's one in Dubai, which I might try and visit when I go there at some point. It's just got loads of, it's just a vinyl store. But again, being here, it's you get the impression everything's a pissing contest between Kuwait and the UAE and Saudi and Bahrain. Who's got the biggest hotel? Who's got the 7 or the 8 or the 9-star luxury thing? It's like they're all trying to outdo each other, really. So there'll probably be a record store here somewhere, and it'll probably be the size of a small town or something. I don't know. And then everyone's a Mo Salah.
Yeah, of course.
So
of course, but
it's fucking hot. It's fucking hot.
Yeah, well, it's not fucking. Well, yeah,
it's not. But you walk. You walk into the.
You're air conditioned. You must be air conditioned everywhere you go.
Yeah. I've got central air in the apartment. It's great. But you go to the college. You go in the main gate on the right hand side. There's an oil rig, as you do, and then further down there's a refinery for the students to practice on. So it's just I'd say the other thing as well. The Duran Air Base is near where I am, and it's just obviously it's the biggest American Air Force base in the region. I think it's one of the biggest in the world. It's constantly just getting buzzed with flyovers of 6 or 9 or 12 F-16s or something. It's just the American military presence here is just gratuitous, ostentatious. I think would be the word. Yeah. So
for those listening who aren't aware, our holy representative has moved to the Middle East. So that's this week's Saudi Arabian update, and I'm expecting to see a swell of listeners
in demand in Saudi
in the Middle East
Arabia.
now. You've got to start spreading the word. If you've got a gospel to spread, it's this fucking podcast.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I can't.
The problem may be
I can't share it with my students like I did in Italy.
No, of course not. And the problem may be some of the content might not be welcome, but it's we'll do our best to try.
Although I did see one of the students the other day walking around with a notebook that had a Metallica and an Anthrax patch on it. I don't know if they're a legitimate fan or what, but
See, that's the kind of thing that as a metal fan, no matter where you go in the world, you'll notice something like that. It could be the smallest fucking thing, but you'll see it.
You tune in on it, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, you do.
I'll tell you one thing another thing I was surprised at. I genuinely surprised at is just the amount of English that's spoken. It's quite. You really would be surprised. It's just in a normal shop. You can just go up to someone and go, "Oh, have you got this?" Yeah, it's over there. You don't get that in a lot of European countries. But then again, it's the amount of immigration there is. This all the Filipinos and the Indians are doing all the menial work. I mean, the phrase you would hear is like petrochemical welfare state. So like, the petrol and the gas and the chemicals pay for basically the indigenous guys to just not do much. So like, for example, like UAE is only 20% of the population of the Emirates is actually Emirati. The rest of it is all people like who've come in from abroad, and like the Emirati just basically sit on dole money, getting paid handsomely for not doing much, and everyone else does the work. So, but if you've got those level of resources, you can afford to go out and buy PSG or Man City or something like that. That's where the money's coming from.
With your fucking small change.
It's not many Newcastle fans though. It's not many Newcastle fans though, I'm surprised.
Not yet. Not yet. But it will happen. Anyway.
Not yet.
I will say, Padre, we just for the benefit of the listeners, we might have to ask you to repeat a couple of things because you're dragging a bit and a bit fuzzy at times. So
if there's any moments where it drops out, then you know why. But this is an international affair.
Yeah, I'm on a hot spot at the minute.
Anyway, this week, it might have been a bit of an experiment because we didn't know how well it was going to work, but we seem to be alive and well. It's debut albums this week, but debut albums are something that has probably been done to death. But we set ourselves one rule: top 10 debut albums, and it can't be Appetite for Destruction. So that was the one rule that we were going to set, because we probably all three of us would have sat here and gone, yeah, that's the best debut album ever. So I mean, I've gone one step further and I've disregarded all the big guns completely. So I might be able to throw something different into the mix. I don't know about you two.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be honest here. So it's a case of my list is mostly. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's some obvious ones there, but I suppose for maybe younger people, there's some not obvious ones. So either way, it's the most appropriate list for me at the moment. I suspect my list will change in a year's time as I make my way through the journey and discover stuff. But for now, this is pretty accurate, I would say, for metal and hard rock, heavy rock, etc.
What do you think you actually want from a debut album, though? Because obviously a lot of the debut albums we talk about, like talking about Appetite for Destruction, it had a massive impact. But some debut albums don't have a huge impact. It's kind of like Maiden, for instance. Like their debut didn't have an enormous impact. Obviously, it was slightly later into their career, and then you go back on it, and then you realise that it's an unreal debut, and that's been the case for a lot of bands. So debut albums are a funny one. It's very rare that a debut is the best of the lot, and it's like it's potential, or it's there's something in there, but it's a bit rough around the edges or whatever. But what do you actually want from a debut album?
No. Do you want
to be blown away, or do you think it's better to go? Yeah, this band's got potential.
Potential, yeah. Maybe it's a breath of fresh air in the fact they're putting a different spin on something. But then again, I've been thinking. I mean, when you say that you don't want to include, or you've avoided including the big guns, this is fair enough. Because again, you don't want to get too cliched. But is it easier to write a debut album when it's kind of a debut or a fresh genre, subgenre? So, like, for example, is like Bonded by Blood and Kill 'Em All, are they that good, or is it just because they represent the kind of the birth of the genre?
Yeah, exactly. It's impact.
So, like, I mean, I would argue that, yeah, like, those albums had a massive impact because they really kind of set the tone for the scene, and that the fact they had such a, even to maybe to this day, when you look at all the promotional videos that Tailgunner have been putting up on social media in the last couple of weeks, and the guitar player is always wearing a Kill 'Em All t-shirt.
Yeah.
So those are some seminal albums, but like, are they seminal because they're actually good albums, or are they seminal and high regarded because they were there at the kind of the birth of a genre?
They're a moment in history, aren't they?
Like, again, you could. I mean, they're like Watershed. Like, they mark. Just to sum up, they mark like a change in the lane or the pace of the way metal was going.
Yeah.
It's a break from what was already out there. So
I mean, I would say it's because they may well do that, but the songs and the tracks have still got to be good. They've still got to grab you and do something that really connects with you. Because an example is the first Saxon album. which is technically the first New Wobbum album.
Yeah,
and that's it. That was the big thing that really changed metal and kept it going. But that album it's okay, but it's not a classic or a great album by any means. You've got another couple, 2 or 3 classic debuts in that scene, but that kind of started it. So it's not just about that, I would say. But
yeah, well, I mean, when I said I disregarded the big boys, when I actually started trying to put together a list of 10, a top 10, I actually found that some of your Kill 'Em Alls and your Iron Maidens and stuff like that, I didn't necessarily put them in my top 10 debuts anyway, because some of the ones that are in my top 10 were impactful for me. You know what I mean? Like we were there when that debut came out.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes a lot of the difference.
I've got a couple like that at least, certainly. Yeah. So
we weren't there when Kill 'Em All came out, so it's kind of like we're looking back on it as like Padre said, it was the start of a scene, so it's important in that way. But in terms of a quality debut, it might not be up there. So but look, let's start from the bottom up. And what's your number 10?
My number 10. Well, like I say, I think for the purposes of what we're doing this evening, I think this absolutely counts in the list. This is a heavy album, but it's a notable album for what it did, I think, for British music at that particular time. With how unexpected the makeup of the band were and the impact. And that is the 1995 debut of Skunk Anansie.
Oh, fuck.
Paranoid and Sunburn.
Yeah, classic.
I mean, this was basically Lemmy's favourite band for his later life, one of his favourite albums. I mean, yeah, it's not metal, but it is fucking heavy. It hits very hard, big groove there, big riffs, and you've got a black and white 2-tone makeup in the band, and you got Skin, this absolutely fierce and sometimes gentle black bisexual woman from South London, who that was it. We are here. That was a year before Spice Girls, and that still screams girl power for me. That's what it. That might sound like a cliche, but that's the kind of thing I think we probably inspired a lot of people, and a lot of young girls beforehand.
Yeah,
a young woman doing something like that,
especially nearly 30 years ago.
Oh God, yeah. Hugely political, but like I say, lots of groove, lots of melody. What a wonderful debut!
I fucking love that album. Absolutely love it. Like, my first introduction to Skunk Anansie was the Week video on Top of the Pops, and it was like, fuck. I was just starting to get into other kinds of rock and metal at that point, so it was, yeah, they were quite impactful. I think they were, like you said, there was nothing really going on like that at that time. So great shout. Didn't even think about them. Fucking great shout. Padre, number 10.
I didn't really do a list.
Right,
I've just got some albums in mind. Yeah, no, I've been a bit busy.
You just said you spent the last week sat on your ass getting paid for it.
Yeah, no, but that was okay. So I can't access anything but the internet at work. It's all blocked, and I haven't had internet. I've only had internet for the last couple of days.
Excuse me.
All right, okay. Yeah, no, I think I would throw In the Nightside Eclipse into the mix as a potential top debut album.
As a debut full length. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
I think again, impact, songwriting, still a bit raw. I think as well, like sometimes when you go back and listen to some debut albums by bands, that those earlier albums, they've still got that edge to them, or they're not too tightly polished. So that's always like nice to hear. So yeah, definitely I would throw In the Nightside Eclipse in that.
Right, so definitely. I'll go from 10 up as well then. My number 10 is an album that definitely kind of blew me away at the time, because it was early 2000s, very early 2000s, when I was just starting to get into sort of some much heavier stuff and sort of experimenting with things I'd never heard before. And this came my way by a friend of ours named Nikki. And she'd picked this album up in HMV because she liked the look of the cover, turned it over, and it was only like, I think it's 8 tracks, this album. And she thought, fuck, 8 tracks ain't going to be worth it. But, you know, gave it a go anyway and passed it on to me. So this is Cult of Luna's self-titled debut. Now, I hadn't really heard anything like Cult of Luna at that point. You know, I know you had bands like Neurosis and you had sort of stuff like Godflesh on the more industrial side, but hearing Cult of Luna for the first time, that fucking blew me away. And being around, you know, it was just after that had come out, that was impactful, I think, as a debut album. And what they became from there, I think the second album, The Beyond, is even better. But as a debut album, that self-titled is an absolute fucking monster. And it's just filth and it's fucking heavy. And it just ticks every box I'd want. And I know, and, you know, you're a Cult of Luna fan, so where do you think it stacks with the rest of their catalogue, the debut?
Can I talk about it later?
All right, yeah, all right, I get you. All right, I get you. Yeah, all right. Look, I'll go straight to number 9 then. From there, and my number 9 is River Runs Red, Life of Agony.
Yeah.
And again, it came out in '93. I obviously wasn't a fan of Life of Agony in '93, but when I started to get into hardcore and the New York stuff, that was one of the big ones. And it's weird because they're not really a hardcore band. I think it's more the lyrical content and where they come from that made them a hardcore band. But the grooves and the riffs and the songs and the lyrics, everything about that album, it's a classic. You know, 13 years on, and it is an absolute fucking classic.
It was different, wasn't it? It stood out compared to everything else.
Yeah, it's almost like, because you already had Typo Negative around then, to a certain extent. I think Life of Agony were almost like a hardcore version of Typo Negative in terms of sound. I find the two bands cross over really well. And obviously you had, what were they called? Pale Horse Named Death, which was Sal Abrascato from Life of Agony, his project after Life of Agony, which had a couple of members of Typo in it as well. So you've got links there anyway. And it's just so fucking gloomy and emotional. It's got everything, that album. It's a hard listen at times.
Yeah,
so many hooks and so many great riffs. An absolute classic. Absolutely.
I mean, there's going to be content there, but obviously takes on a different meaning now. It makes more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I mean, it's again not a band I've ever really checked out. I will get to them obviously soon. But yeah, one thing I've sort of always wondered about is, are we ever going to get like a proper good evaluation, either as a documentary or a book on the New York rock scene of the 80s and early 90s? Because you think some of them, because people always talk about Bay Area, California, and Sunset Strip, etc. And if you think of some of the stuff coming out of New York, you know, very varied. And of course, what we got, you know, everything from, like you say, you got Anthrax, the Nuclear Assault, but you ended up with Typo Negative, Life of Agony, Dog Eat Dog, Sick of It All. I mean,
yeah, the hardcore scene as a whole, the whole Lower East Side of New York and CBGBs and all of that. It's huge. It's hugely influential on what music is today as well. You know, and it probably doesn't get the credit it deserves. I mean, there's a couple of bits and pieces out there. There's the documentary about Agnostic Front. There's the movie adaptation, I suppose, of the CBGB story with stars Alan Rickman. But yeah, you're right. There's not been enough of it talked about, I suppose, when you're thinking musical history.
I mean, that scene single-handedly kept up the Windjammer jacket industry.
Fucking right, it did. Those were the days. You don't see them so much anymore, which is a shame.
No.
Real fucking shame. What you got at number 9 then? Go on.
Number 9. It's Route 1, but it's there. It's up there. And that's the debut from Iron Maiden. So, yeah, I mean, it's not my favourite Maiden album, and it's not high up on my list because of that reason. You know, it's still quite raw. The production ain't great.
No.
They were very, you know, they hadn't got that sort of money behind them just yet. But as a group of songs, what the fuck? Absolutely brilliant. You know, young lads doing something new and fresh with a load of other bands, and they knocked that out.
Phantom of the Opera on your debut album? It's
I mean, Christ.
It's just fucking. It's absolutely fucking mental. Look, it's up there with some of my favorite Maiden albums because. Like the two Di'Anno albums, I definitely prefer over Killers. You probably different, but
I think you know what? I think I've had a rethink about that. But the thing is, I think Killers is better than some people give it credit for. But there's not many of those I gather. But it lacks choruses.
Yeah,
that's my problem with the album.
It lacks the big Maiden anthems, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is why I go back to the debut. I think because you've got your Running Freeze, and you've got your Sanctuary, and you've got your Phantom of the Opera. They're such memorable songs. So
yeah,
but yeah, fucking, they would never have known what was to come after writing an album, but they must have had an inkling we're onto something special.
Oh, I think they always knew. Steve Harris. I mean, that's why he made the point of when the time came of ditching Di'Anno because he was an obstacle.
Yeah, he was a fucking liability, is what he was. But yeah. All right, look, it's got to be in there. It's got to be in there. I'll go straight to number 8, and look, next Friday we're seeing them. They're a great fucking band, and again, what they are in terms of a crossover band, and how many crossover bands there are since. They're one of the greatest, I think. Municipal Waste, Hazardous Mutation. What a fucking debut!
Ooh,
what a fucking debut! Proper. I'm going by here. I know it's technically not a debut, but I'm going to go debut album proper.
Okay, see, that's I didn't include that because I don't really consider it their debut, but oh well.
I think when we first discovered them, we were doing Metal Pigeon at the time, and when we first discovered them, what came before it was considered more of a demo, so it wasn't technically an album. So I think that's why I'm considering Hazardous Mutation as a debut. So
damn you, because that's my favourite Municipal Waste album. So oh well, never mind.
Well, yeah, but it's a classic. It's a modern. I'd say modern classic. It's nearly 20 fucking years old, but
don't. Fucking hell.
What can you say about it? What can you say about it? It's just fucking great. And when they play the songs now, they still stand up, and I just adore that band for what they do. There's been moments in their career where I've thought, it ain't so great, but
yeah.
But what they just for what they do and what they stand for, and just how cool they are as a band, they're just so important to the scene.
And they got such a thick bass sound on that album.
Yeah,
it's
it's a great sound.
Surprises me.
The artwork's great. The artwork's great as well.
Can I throw one in?
Oh yeah.
I'm in.
Scream Bloody Gore, Death. Again, like
really, I almost put that in, to be fair. So
I mean, a herald call, really. Really one of the first death metal albums, really pushing that out there. I mean, there's some great songs on there as well. I mean, I love the guitar tone as well, but Infernal Death, Baptized in Blood, Torn to Pieces, and I absolutely love the album cover. So
the artwork's
what you want from a death metal album cover, really. But it's a lot. I've always loved the guitar tone on the Death Use, especially on Spiritual Healing, Leprosy, and Scream Bloody Gore, like very chuggy, slightly muffled as well. But the drum sound, Death had a really good drum sound as well. I mean, I definitely think that needs to get, be represented at some point. I'm not necessarily saying it's the best or.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's always between Scream Bloody Gore and Leprosy, and that's where people go. I prefer Scream Bloody Gore personally. Symbolic is my favorite Death album, but I think Scream Bloody Gore of the first two is the better. I think it's a great album.
Yeah. I'm undecided at the moment because I'm still absorbing both. But
another one I would throw in, and I don't know where you guys stand on it, would be the first Rammstein album.
Sehnsucht was the first one.
No, Herzlight.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah. I'm not all that au fait with Rammstein.
Yeah, no, it's a good album. I mean, it's certainly not my favourite, but I think it's I can't think of a bad song on that album. There's nothing skippable for me.
And again, it comes down to impact, doesn't it? They were doing.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, I wasn't necessarily going for like impact or like the albums I looked at. Again, like I said, I haven't got necessarily a numerical order, but I think I've been kind of subconsciously drawn to that kind of way of like looking at them, because I mean, it's like, you know, I said Scream Bloody Gore. I mean, there's another 2 or 3 that I'll mention later that again I think really either pushed the genre forward or did something completely different. But again, that Rammstein album definitely. I mean, and look what that band have become, and it's like again, it's like it's a good debut album, important, not in terms of just not just artistically, but it's like building a house, isn't it? It's like, you know, it's a strong foundation for you to build up, and then when people go back in terms of like from a just like people buying the material, like if people go back and go, oh my god, these first 3 albums were pants. No, I'm not going to touch them. It's like, you know, like how many of us have really owned a copy of the early stuff Pantera put out? No, we all start at Cowboys from Hell, because the stuff before that was just like, what the fuck?
Cowboys from Hell is a debut album for me, because that's when they properly became Pantera. Cowboys from Hell is a debut album. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. That's what I would say. Completely. Yeah, and maybe we could discuss that going in the mix as well. But yeah, the stuff. I mean, even the you look at pictures of them before they did that album, and you know, I've listened to some of the stuff, and it's just it doesn't work, and it's like, and it's a waste of talent. The style they were playing in on those albums. So, but you know, you're not going to go back and go, oh yeah, that fucking Metallica lot, that Kill 'Em All album, that's a load of shit. That is. No, it's not. It's different. I mean, again, I don't really. Morbid Visions and by Sepultura is good, but you know, it's not Beneath the Remains. You know, no. Some bands take a while to get going.
But I think with things like Morbid Visions and Bestial Devastation, is what's clear is the songs were decent, but the production was so shit. It's only now in the last 12 months since the Cavaleras have re-recorded it, and you can hear it all coming to life.
Yeah,
the production on those albums, the originals, is fucking dog shit.
I mean, even the jump between that and Schizophrenia is huge.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it's all. Sometimes it's just about like you said, with Maiden, it's like finances and access to decent producers, all of that. It can really let things down. So, you know,
I mean, that first album they had a producer that didn't really feel it. So
yeah.
Their guitarist wasn't really into it either. He liked playing the slow stuff.
Yeah,
and that's why they got rid of him.
Yeah, so sometimes it's just it's chemistry, it's all those things, and I think Steve Harris was never going to allow Maiden to just sort of be another New Wobbin band that weren't going to get anywhere. He obviously had ambition, so you know. But you can hear it in the songs; they were different. Saxon and Angel Witch and all those bands, Diamond Head. Maiden were offering something different, and that's what took them forward. What's next in your countdown?
Me, number 8. I mean, I'm sure you want to gloss over this if you want. Excuse me, but it's in my list because it's a great album and it's up there for me. And that's "Burn My Eyes" by Machine Head.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. That despite my comments previously about this band, I that is also on my list.
You can't deny that album. You can't.
No, you can't. No.
It's what they've done since is the problem. "Burn My Eyes" is the classic. It is a fucking classic. You know what? Since when we did the Riffs episode and we were talking about Davidian and obviously then some of the other songs on that album, and I've actually gone back and listened to it again for the first time in quite a while, and it is a fucking quality album. It really is. So, and so's More Things Change, actually. I enjoyed that more than I remembered. So it's just a shame that what happened after.
It's just when you get to the Burning Red, and you just
it all went wrong.
You know,
that and Supercharger, it just all went tits up. So you know, but yeah, I agree. "Burn My Eyes" completely.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll give you number 7. We're going hardcore again. I think with this was probably a really good precursor to the whole metalcore movement in the early 2000s as well. A band that had been hugely influential on many of those bands. Hatebreed, "Satisfaction Is the Death of Desire." 25 minutes.
That phrase just brings me back.
I know, but we don't need to go there.
No. I'm just saying like that. All I was just saying is this: have you ever met, and to our listeners as well, have you ever met anyone, like a single individual, that has just put you off a band? that you just can't listen to that band because you know they're going to remind you of a certain individual, and you just think, and you even think to yourself, if the band knew that that person was a fan of theirs, they'd probably ask that person, "Can you not listen to our music, please?" You know, and that's what I get with I've not listened to Agnostic Front. I never will, because I can, because and that particular, and when you get that lyric tattooed on you and you fucking talk about it all the time because you think it's some kind of like insightful, like almost like Socratic, deep analysis of the human psyche. No, I'm going to stop now. I'm going to stop.
Yeah, I think you should. What it actually is just a classic fucking hardcore album. 25 minutes of just fucking wall to wall bangers. You know, I mean, I think they stepped it up with Perseverance, the next album, but it's got the full works. Satisfaction's Death and Desire. It's got everything. It's got groove. It's got riffs. It's got all the breakdowns. It's a fucking classic.
Yeah. Decent album. Absolutely.
And look, again, you know, Jamie Jasta, how important he is to the scene. He's the likes of people like Rob Zombie and Dee Snider. I think Jamie Jasta is a bit of a modern day version of those people. He's a proper defender of the faith, and you know, the work that he puts into the metal scene is just incredible. And in the early days of Hatebreed, they couldn't tour the world because he was terrified of flying. You know, and when they actually started to get outside the US, it just went nuts. You remember the Sepultura show, their first ever UK gig at the Astoria? Place went absolutely fucking nuts for Hatebreed.
I didn't realise that was
that was their first ever UK show, and it was fucking crazy. So will always be up there for me. That album, always. It's a classic. So go on then, throw another one in, number 7 for you.
Number 7. Yeah, so again, slightly off the metal track, but I mean, this is just an absolutely brilliant album that just laid absolute destruction when it came out in the early 90s. And it's a huge shame the band never became the big band that they should have done, but it comes down to various factors, and that is Earth versus the Wild Hearts.
Yes.
By the Wild Hearts. I mean, this is rock and roll through the meat grinder, you know, with added dose of Swedish pop melodies. It's such a feel good album. You can sing to it, you can get pissed to it, you can fucking slaughter people to it. It's just, what an album.
Yeah, it's a proper drinking album. I mean, it's the Wild Hearts, of course, it's a drinking album, but it's a classic. It's an absolute classic. It's
so many riffs as well. Just riffs coming out every orifice.
That band they're like therapy. They just created so many hooks in their music. It's almost like how do you fucking do that, especially in a debut? You know, it's mad. It's mad.
I think some people just have a certain kind.
Is it because like, for example, a lot of debut albums have been like kicking about in like the writer's head for a long time, and therefore that's why you might. It's like, you know, it's like saying like, you know, everyone's got like one book in them, you know, but you know, whereas maybe a second or a third album, those riffs haven't been kind of gestating for as long, which is why maybe that second album or that third album is more difficult, or that third album specifically is more difficult to write.
Back in the day, there would have been label pressure, wouldn't there? You've done your debut album, now we need another album, we need your next one. So it's almost taken away the creative freedom. They've got to produce rather than just create.
Yeah,
you know, the debut albums are always like you said, it's stuff they've been working around for years possibly, and then a label comes along and say, well, we need another album in the next 6 months, what you got?
And that's the thing as well, because like if before, I mean, a lot of the bands that we like and listen to would release the demo first.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, like the really well-known ones, like No Life Till Leather, for example, and those would have been out there, and they would have set this, you know, like, you know, 3 or 4 albums, 3 or 4 songs. But you know, you're not going to release a demo for your third album, are you? You're not going to release a demo. No. You might drop an EP in between, but and I think, you know, that's one of the things I've noticed that I quite like about Spotify. Like a lot of the bands we've talked about in the last 18 months, like for example, the most recent one I've listened to was Fugitive. So like they've got an EP on Spotify, and just 2 or 3 songs. Obviously, Lowest Creature dropped a few demo tracks a while ago. Can't remember the other one.
Like a 3-track cassette, wasn't it? That so yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the?
But that's
what was the band that we were talking about recently? And they sampled Hellraiser on the beginning of the track. This is why I'm losing my memory. I'm telling you.
Doomsday.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the Doomsday EP. That's another one. Yeah.
But that's I think dropping in EPs and demos now. That's where the music industry is. It's all about like what Slipknot were talking about, what Corey Taylor was talking about, that you might get away from recording albums all the time. Whereas if you do EPs or singles, it keeps people engaged and it gives them something to tour where they can actually make income. So I think that's why that's happening now, more so than it did 30, 40 years ago. It was just album tour, album tour, album tour. Whereas now it's different. You've got to keep people engaged. I mean, every Friday, you sift through a list of 50, 60, 70 fucking new releases, whereas, back in the day, that wasn't the case. So.
And, whereas like, again, like in the 80s, especially, I mean, how many live albums did Maiden put out in the 80s?
Well, in the 80s, just the one.
And then you
just one, yeah. They put lots out since then.
But since then, it's been non-stop.
But then, like, you've got in between Massive Publishing and Justice for All, you get Garage Days Revisited. Then in between Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning, you've got, after Ride the Lightning and Massive Publishing, you've got the Creeping Death EP.
Yeah.
Slayer did the same thing with Haunting the Chapel. So yeah, it's or they put the live albums up as well. So just like you said, to keep people engaged and buying something, probably to keep the record labels happy as well.
Yeah, exactly. It kept things ticking over. Whereas now it's not a money thing. It's just
whereas after Use Your Illusion 2, Axl Rose's solution was just to disappear for 10 years.
Right, so that was number 7. Are you at number 7? And
I've just done my number 7.
I've just done your number 7. All right, I tell you what, give us your number 6 then.
You're on my 6. Oh,
yeah, I'll have your 6.
All right, well, this won't take long. I'm sure I'm going to get 3 for this, but as far as I'm concerned, it's not a bad song on this album. It's a great collection, no skips. Just raw, punk-infected sleaze, rock and roll metal, and that is Too Fast for Love by Motley Crue.
No, I knew you'd drop that in there at some point.
Just get out. Just go.
Yeah, look, I'm not a Crue fan, but I suppose it's got to have its moment, isn't it? It has to. And one way or another, it's got to. I don't know what else to say. It's fucking.
He sneezes at my list now. It's my favourite of theirs. It's no nonsense as well. You think about what they became. That's a very straightforward album. They were just focused on writing good songs.
Yeah,
which for me they did. There wasn't all the other bollocks. Even though they were mental at that time, they weren't that mental. That came later. And this is probably the only time when they were like really just focused on the music and not the rock and roll aspect. So it's a much more pure album for me.
Well, you know what? Look, I have got a bit of an affinity with it because the title track is the first sort of rock song that my kids started dancing to when they were little. So that and We're Not Going to Take It by Twisted Sister. So it's. Yeah, I've got a soft spot for that album for that reason. So yeah, it's fair. It's got to go. It's not like you said Dream Theater.
You just imagine it like Tregenza, like the Tregenza's kids are like running around going, Dad, look, we're too fast for love. Turn that shit off. I'll give you something. I'll show you how fast I really can be. Go on, get up those stairs.
No, we'll allow it. It's fine. Right, look, I'll do number 6. And part of the reason this is in there is because I loved it at the time, and then I haven't listened to it for fucking years. And then in the last couple of months, I started listening to it again and realised what a great album it is. And I've just picked up the vinyl as well. The Sword, Age of Winters. So, which Padre's looking at with blank faces because he probably doesn't even know what it is.
I know of the band. It's not a band I've ever really checked out. So
yeah,
I know the band. I just don't.
Look, there was one song I think that I heard out there on its own, Iron Swan, and that they're a stonery kind of riffy type band. You know, a lot of people listen to this will know where they are. But yeah, I've gone back and listened to it recently, and fuck me, I remember how much it blew me away at the time. It's a great album. Saw them live a couple of times back then, and they were so fucking good. They even supported Metallica once at the O2. So, you know, they did hit they hit a bit of hype, but they never really went as far as they probably should have done. You know, they toured with Clutch, who are a band who are held in really high regard, and I think the Sword are a better band, which is probably going to get me shot. But you know, it's
not by me.
Yeah, but look, go and listen to it. It is a fucking great album. It's heavy, it's hooky. You know, it's got everything you possibly want from a stonery type album. What made me go back and listen to it was Hail the Void's Memento Mori earlier this year.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's a sort of a similar vein to that, I suppose. It's a little bit less intense, a little bit more bluesy, but it has a similar feel, and that's what made me go back and think about it. So, yeah. Anybody who isn't familiar with it, if you're into sort of stonery, riffy, bluesy stuff, give it a shot because it's fucking great. And there's a song called Freya, which is obviously my daughter's name. So yeah, it's got extra connotation. Padre, got anything else to throw in the mix?
Yeah, Blizzard of Oz.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody would have expected anything that good to come out of Ozzy Osbourne as a first solo album.
No. I mean,
well, I mean, let's be honest here. Without Randy Rhoads, we wouldn't have done. But
true, yeah, very true. But whatever made it all come together, yeah.
I know people say that Sharon Osbourne saved Ozzy. No, Randy Rhoads saved Ozzy.
Yeah.
no, like, you know, Sharon saved him physically, or Randy saved him artistically, musically, and gave him a lot of credibility because it's always going to be, you know, Ozzy discovered Randy Rhoads, when we all know that's not really true. Like Randy Rhoads is already a very established player on the scene.
It was a chemistry.
Just like those riffs from that album, you know.
Yeah.
We all know the usual suspects. Maybe a little bit more out of left field for me. Alive or Just Breathing, Killswitch Engage.
Again, technically not a debut, is it? Because there was the self-titled for it, wasn't it? But
I think the second album officially,
yeah. But you know what? I would consider it a bit of a debut as well, because the first one, when it was out on Ferret Records, was a bit of a rough kind of. You know, they reissued it, didn't they? A few years later, I think, with better production and remastered it, all that. But yeah, it's a fair shout.
Yeah,
I mean, I mean, there's 2 or 3 lists that I've looked at online, and they've all got it down as a debut. So I just assumed. So my bad, I assumed it was a debut. So I went away and listened, because I mean, you guys recommended it a while ago. I think was it during the Bloodstock review?
Would have been Bloodstock, yeah.
I mean, one thing. I mean, again, I've said this before. Originally, I saw them at Download 2005, and I was just put off by them because of just that particular performance. And it's definitely one of I think, you know, I missed out on something, because I think some of their riffs are just fucking awesome, and I really do like the switching between the vocal style. You've got the clean singing, then you go into the growling and the screaming.
They did it well.
You know, I need to give metalcore a bit more of a you know, I need to sit down and listen to some metalcore. I mean, that what was that? What year did we go to that gig? Was it 2004 in London? Was it Chimera?
It was that would
Gamma
be
Ray?
No, it would have been the
And In Flames,
American heavy metal, the new wave American heavy metal tour. You're talking about that?
Yeah, but we saw In Flames headline though, didn't we? Because we saw them at the Hammersmith.
Oh, that was a difference. That was a Christmas
Oh,
show. Fucking
right,
hell.
yeah. That's when I was trashed. So fuck me, I can't. I know In Flames headlined that, and I think Within Temptation or Lacuna Coil.
It was Lacuna Coil, I think.
Coil,
Chimera, yeah.
absolutely fucked. So I got
that's
tried
going
to
off
forget
on a
that
tangent, that one. But I tell you what we'll do, and I'll put it out on social media as well, because I can recommend you loads of metalcore. We both can, but
Yeah.
we'll put it out to social media as well and see what people got to recommend, because there's going to be stuff that I forgot. There was some good stuff, but there was also some turgid shite.
Yeah, we have to think after 06, metalcore became something else.
Yeah, it was only good for probably 3 years, 4 years tops, and then it just became a little bit. The whole harsh, clean singing thing became a bit too contrived, didn't it?
It mashed up with emo, didn't it? And deathcore came out, and all this crabcore bollocks and floppy hair, and like I say, I call it MySpace metalcore because there's a difference between that stuff and the stuff which was almost proper metal.
Yeah, yes. some of it's really memorable for me, and like I say, Killswitch Engage, that bands like Bleeding Through, Unearth in their early days, there was some great stuff coming out of that scene. So, Padre, we'll hook you up. Don't worry.
Well, one more, I think they deserve a mention. Recomputrification by Carcass.
Yeah, a lot of people would probably say that. I'm not a fan of the early Carcass stuff, to be fair, but again, how important that album is and that band are, it's undeniable, really. When it comes to Carcass, it's heart work for me. I wasn't such a fan of the early grindcore stuff.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. But I think that album's got to get a mention.
Yes, no, it has.
I mean, are we going to be able to get through this list without anyone mentioning that album from that band from Birmingham?
We'll see. We'll see. We're top 5 now, so go on. And what's your top 5? What's number 5?
Well, I'm going to stick in the realm here of the early 80s sleaze metal. But I prefer this album a lot, and I love this because it's just got such a distinctive approach to death melodies, and that is Out of the Cellar by Rats.
Oh my God!
Get out! Just get out!
I didn't see that one coming at all.
I love this album. I absolutely love this album. It's I don't know what it is about their songs and how they approach their melodies and their chord structures, but there's something really distinctive about them that I just gets under my skin.
They were a bit different. I'll give you that. They were definitely a bit different to all the rest.
You ratty little bastard.
I didn't see that one come. But then, to be fair, you've been on about Rat for quite a while. So
I just they've really connected. I never into them years ago, but I think it's a great album.
Fucking Rat bastard. I'm gonna throw that out of the water. My number 5 was a debut, obviously, because that's what we're talking about. By a solo artist coming away from his original band, Danzig, self-titled debut.
Okay.
I fucking love that album. I really do. Look, it's got fucking Mother on it for a start, which is
you can't
which is a classic. Twisted Cain is a classic, but coming from the Misfits to doing that whole sort of as the evil Elvis type thing, I absolutely fucking even down to the artwork. It's like the Misfits Crimson Skull and then the Danzig Goat Skull. It's just, I don't know. It all worked for me, and I've never seen Danzig live, never seen the Misfits live, but I would absolutely kill. I don't know what state Danzig is in these days in terms of performing live. It looks pretty good, to be fair, on video from what I've seen, but I would just love to see him. He did this album in full, I think, was it Mystic Festival in Poland over the summer? I just would have fucking killed to see that. Love this album. It's a classic. It's a classic. So look,
I need to give it more time. I mean, it's never really clicked with me, but maybe down the line.
Yeah, I love it. It would have been there or thereabouts for donkey's years now, so I couldn't disregard it. Number 4, what you got?
Me. Okay, well, it's the list. It is what it is. It's a nice.
Now, we're into the nitty gritty now. So
yeah, well, it's might be some surprises here possibly, but I mean, look, Kill 'Em All.
Who's that by? Not familiar. No.
Yeah. No. Kill 'Em All. Number 4.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's same reason for Maiden, isn't it? It's And
I'd also like. Definitely throw that in. But I mean, I throw in Killing as my business as well.
Yeah, see, I definitely wouldn't. That wouldn't get certainly wouldn't get in my top 10. Iron Maiden and Kill 'Em All would have been close, but
it's fair enough. I just there's something about that. But both of those albums, for Kill 'Em All and Killing Is My Business, they're just so fucking raw in places that it's just. If you Kill 'Em All is one of those albums for me that if you don't listen to it for a long time and go back, it always seems to sound fresh.
Yeah,
I don't know why. It just does. It just, and I think that's a sign of a good debut album as well. I think.
Yeah, you can keep going back. Look, again, they're basically kids, and they're writing songs like Four Horsemen and Whiplash.
Yeah,
Seek and Destroy. You know, it's mad when you think about that. I mean,
yeah.
The first 3 albums essentially are like 3 years apart, and to bang out that level of material is incredible.
They're done and written by the time they're 24.
Yeah,
it's like fucking hell. It's like
you can almost allow them St. Anger when you can do that level of, well, maybe not, but that level of quality in such a short space of time is mad. It's mad when you think.
Yeah,
about it. This isn't just 3 good albums or 3 classics. This is 3 of the finest metal albums there's ever been,
and that's why we love them, and that's why they deserve our respect, and that's why everyone, even some of the haters, are going to be a bit gutted that band are going to, at some point, they will retire, and we're always going to be able to say, I saw Dave Lombardo play with them, and they played Fades to Black, blah blah blah. It's that they've given us a lot over the years.
There's a reason why they are mentioned on virtually every episode we do.
That this is the thing. It's like the people in your life that are closest to you, or usually have the biggest or the most ability to upset or piss you off. And it's the same with bands. The bands that you really love are the bands that are really also going to drive you to distraction and like to have like emotional reactions when they do an album like St. Anger, and you're just like, what? Like, why? What? It's and you really wanted it to be something else, and it wasn't, and but or whatever, or Reload or Load or something. I mean,
it is what it is. Kill 'Em All's a classic. Yeah. Look, I'm going hardcore again for number 4. This might not be that familiar to a lot of people, but Barcode, Berserk, Danish hardcore band, very anti the hardcore way. They were proper fucking beer drinkers. They were football fans, and it was all very, very rock and roll in the way they delivered things. But this album, it's how you do. It's how you do hardcore for me. It's punchy, it's heavy, it's fast, it's aggressive, but it's full of hooks, and it's got a fucking great cover of Breaking the Law. There's one thing Barcode always did really well. It was covers. Did Breaking the Law, and the next best one they did was Accepts I'm a Rebel. It's just something about this band. I've got the Berserk tattooed on my shin as a little gap filler. That's how much this album means to me. It's a fucking classic. And there are bands that don't get anywhere near enough respect when it comes to hardcore. I would die for them to reunite. They haven't played live since I think it was 05, 06, something like that. I would fucking love a Barcode reunion. Jacob Bredar's done all sorts of other bands over the years, but nothing has ever come close to Barcode. So that's one thing I want to happen. It's a Barcode reunion. I'll be all over it. Oh, but no one else knows what I'm talking about, so we'll leave it there and move on.
Yeah, another band I need to check out at some point, but I will.
Do it. It's a classic. It's an absolute classic. It's got a rock and roll edge to it as well, which just makes it a bit more fun. It's not as stuffy as hardcore can be. You think about bands like Earth Crisis and all that were a bit militant and a bit, fucking come on, get on with it.
Yeah.
Barcode did it right. So yeah. All right, go on then. What's next up for you? Let's have it.
Number 3. Well, it's easy to overlook stuff like this just because of what's happened in heavy music ever since. and before and what we normally talk about, but just going through my albums and realizing how much I love this album, and it's my favourite of theirs, despite the fact that the next album is probably their bigger commercially, and that's the self-titled debut from System of a Down.
Oh my god! Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, that's actually on my list.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I mean,
it's a great album.
You think when they again, like I say, it took a couple of years for them to really hit the mainstream, but even so, when that first album came out within the metal scene, my God, yeah, it's nothing like it at all, or since, I don't think. Let's come at that sort of originality with heavy music,
and it is a heavy album.
Oh yeah,
and you think of they're a single guitar band as well. It's a fucking heavy album.
Yeah,
no,
it's it's a classic.
I'm gonna be listening to that on the way to work tomorrow morning. I haven't listened to it, and it's probably getting on 10 years since I last listened.
Well, I didn't really know much about them until we saw them supporting Sabbath.
Yeah.
That was on that album, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That was before. Yeah, it was. Yeah, before the
second. I saw.
I'd have to say as well, if we're in that area in the 90s, the Korn album. Korn.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in Ant's list, is it?
It's not my list. Well, I mean, again, it's not really where I'm at these days, that kind of stuff. And I haven't really got to new metal in my journey. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, if I'm honest with you. But
go around it.
It is a great album. I don't think we can deny that and what it did for heavy music.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't think I will love it as much as I will when I was a teenager, because it's a very specific kind of, heavy music.
Yeah, it is. But again, when you think about it, that's nearly 30 years old.
Oh,
so it's it's just fucking ridiculous. But there you go. All right, so we're in top three. This is where we're getting special now. So going back a few years, grunge came along. Obviously, this is a bit before our time. I got into grunge not off the back of Nevermind, but sort of 94, 95, In Utero and stuff like that. But I only really discovered this band a little bit later. So number 3, Alice in Chains, Facelift.
Yeah.
On my list.
Yeah, it's debut album aside, I think it's their best album anyway. It just pips Dirt for me. It's close. It's very close. It was
I go for that. Yeah, no, I think Dirt is a great album. It's like Iron Kick the Chair and that kind of stuff. But sitting on an angry chair, sorry. But like there's some cracking songs on Facelift. I mean, I quite like Sea of Sorrow. I love the guitar solo from that song.
I think the difference is Dirt is such a miserable album. I mean, Facelift, don't get me wrong, but
that's what I like about it, though. I think it's
dark.
But as a double whammy, album number 1 and album number 2, they're up there with some of the greatest. Facelift and Dirt, they're just unreal, both of them.
I suppose
any album that's got Mad Hen Fox on as well.
Yeah,
great tune.
Yeah,
I think there's a couple of times on Facelift, I suppose, which is what brings it down for me, where they actually sound like they're trying to do sort of extreme type, but like the band Extreme sounding metal, and it doesn't quite work.
Yeah, but I think the strong points are so strong that it would just pip it over Dirt for me. As a debut, like I said, it's undeniable. But if we're comparing the two, it just pips Dirt for me. But that's me. So,
Padre, I have to make a polite request. You're a bit muted at the moment with your positioning of your thing. So,
shut up, you lazy bastard.
No, I need to get I've got an iPad from work, to be fair, but I don't have a stand or a cover for it, so I don't want to damage it.
So it's resting with your thumb, like
also, I'm 2 hours ahead of you, so it was actually much later.
Stop fucking complaining. Quite interesting.
No, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying.
That's fine, though. We can hear you well there.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Now you're fine. Right, where are you going next then? Come on.
Yeah,
then.
I had my hand over the fucking microphone. That's why.
Oh, you fucking Jesus fucking Christ! This is amateur podcast hour. Right, where are you going next? Where are we?
My number two.
Your number two.
My number two. Well, we've had this one, so we're gonna have it again. And that's for the debut from Cult of Luna.
Right. You talk.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, when I first heard the Beyond, the second album was the first album I heard, and it was like, my God, never heard heavy music like this. It's crushing and it's just huge and enveloping, and it's, it's like being sucked into another dimension. And heard this, then listened to the debut. I don't know what it is, but I just prefer the songs on the debut. Simple as that. It's like an apocalypse going on inside your head. It really is. And I still cannot get over how it sounds to this day. It's just something else.
It is a cacophony of
noise,
isn't it? It's savage. I mean, with the first sort of times we saw them live, it was with Dillinger Escape Plan, wasn't it? I think. Yeah,
we were very drunk.
We were very, very drunk. But you know what? I can remember it because they were just that impactful, I suppose. I mean, it was just kind of silhouettes, weren't they, on stage? But sonically, just incredible. Absolutely fucking incredible band. Again, we've had this conversation before, but I need to listen a little bit more to some of the later stuff to get where they are now. But the first three albums, I suppose, all just masterpieces for me. Love all of them. So
yeah. Those first three are.
But I'm glad that we crossed over somewhere in this top 10.
Yeah.
It's good to see.
So we're at number two, yeah.
We're at number two. I'll give you my number two before we go to number ones. And
well, I got one for two as well. So you do yours first.
All right, so we'll round it up. Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Fucking what a fucking album. I don't even.
It's difficult to top that.
What's been said before about that album that we just be repeating ourselves.
Yeah, I know. Like, I'll just say this. Like, for me, it's like there's some very subtle touches on that album. I'm not just talking about the music. I'm talking about like the CD case and everything. But if you look at the credits, it doesn't say band members. It just says the guilty partners.
Yeah,
guilty parties. It's little touches like that. Plus the fact you've got the album cover is iconic. You know, not just an iconic album cover, it's an iconic picture. Really, just sum up the tone and the message of the record. And plus the fact you've got James Maynard Keenan from Tour on there as well.
It's a very, very special album. There was no one doing anything like it at the time. It's a bit before my time. About 94, I think I discovered Rage Against the Machine. So I wasn't quite there when it was first out, but fucking just what impact it had. And there isn't a bad song on it. There is not a weak song.
No, there isn't. There isn't. I know it's just the guitar tone and
the drum sound just sounds huge. Whenever I put the record on, it just sounds massive. It's just.
And it's just got riffs coming out of every orifice. It's
riffs, hooks, some of the best lyrics you'll hear. It's just a classic, an absolute classic.
Just speaking of James Maynard Keenan, did we need to put Tool on this top 10 list?
No.
Right. Okay. And no Dream Theater.
No.
Okay. Can I throw one in there?
What would Tool's debut be anyway? I think that's up for debate. Yeah. So
see, that's it. Is it? Yeah.
My number two. It has to be Remission by Mastodon.
I'm not saying a word.
And I'll tell you my number one. It's Rage. So Rage Against the Machine was my number one.
All right, there you go. Fair enough.
Mastodon is number two.
Right,
I'll just say this very quickly. Any album that has March of the Fire Ants on is that special. That song is like, I mean, you go and if you just type in March of the Fire Ants drum cover, there's a couple of guys on YouTube that have like filmed themselves playing the drum part. And fuck me, it's just like, how do you write a drum track that intricate? You know, like, I mean, I remember someone, I was sat around a table once and someone was going on about, what's the name of the drummer from Queen again?
Roger
Taylor.
Yeah, Roger Taylor is the best drummer of all time. All right, and I just looked at them and said, you cannot not listen to heavy metal and come up with such a ridiculous statement. I said, I said some of the usual suspects. I was like, you know, Dave Lombardo, Garth Samuelson, and then I just said, actually, no, fuck it, Brad Drayler from Mastodon would piss on Roger Taylor from a great height, and I just played March of the Fire Ants, and they were like, all right, fair enough, that's fucking insane.
Or if you want to shut people up that way, you just got to say Roger Taylor from Duran Duran is a better drummer than Roger Taylor from Queen.
Yeah. I mean, but Roger Taylor can drum really fast. What? Yeah, on Stone Cold Crazy, which is like the closest Queen ever came to thrash.
Oh, there you go. That one's actually true.
And it is. Yeah, validated by the fact that Hetfield sung it at the benefit tribute.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll
Mastodon number 2.
We'll come back to that in a sec. All right. So, Voice of Reason. Then, what is your number one?
Number one. Well, this doesn't come close to thrash. I can tell you that now. But yeah, this is one of my favourite bands, and this very much, when you consider everything I like, which is the metal and the rock, the heavy stuff, but also the dark punk, post-punk, goth, synthesizers, electronic stuff, and this pretty much sits at the apex of all of that and is very me. But I think this is a brilliant debut, even though it's not my favourite album of this, I suppose, band. But when we consider, you know, their chief brain, how his musical career has developed since then, and probably how he's going to be regarded in years to come, it's a significant piece of work musically, full stop. And that is Pretty Hate Machine by Nine Inch Nails.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't actually see that coming at all, but yeah, I get you. Again, I'm not a fan of Nine Inch Nails, but I get you. Yeah.
No, it's like I say, I you know, the Downward Spiral is my favourite. I mean, that album's it's just something else. But you know, this is, it's a pop album, but it is also a rock album. It's harsh at times. It is industrial, and I know a lot of the people who were doing the harsh industrial stuff at the time, the Ministries and the Godfleshes, didn't look at this as being particularly credible. But you know, how many people did it pull into rock, pull into the dark stuff, and you know, make an impact and bridge that gap. You know, alternative kids who, you know, listened to Depeche Mode but weren't quite sure about rock or anything like that. You know, Lollapalooza, etc.
Yeah.
And obviously the following EP, the Broken EP, you know, there's some fucking metal riffs on that album properly. So, you know, it's not like they couldn't do that stuff. But, you know, this is a guy, Trent Reznor, who at this point he's scoring movies. He scored a movie, a very quiet movie that was set fucking 2 miles down the road on the Kent coast, for fuck's sake. He scored a Disney movie now. And he's just scored the Turtles movie.
Yeah.
And it just he's one of the greats at this point. He really is. And considering where he started, I mean, he started just doing session stuff and whatnot with pop groups before he just says, I'm going to do it myself. I want to be doing something that, you know, fits me, you know, as a music I want to listen to that no one else is doing. I think, you know, he's a very important.
He's he's an icon. He is a music icon. You can't deny that.
And this is just a fantastic album, full stop. So yeah,
I completely get where that's coming from. They're one of those bands that I wish I was a fan of, because there's something so cool about Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails, but I've never really got into them. I haven't tried for donkey's years, to be fair. So maybe now might be a good time to give them another go. But
I mean, like I say, if you're listening to stuff like Carpenter Brut, which again I think sits at that apex, it maybe you'd be a bit more open to them now.
So maybe I will do that. But I completely see where you're coming from, though. And Nine Inch Nails are they're a legendary band. They really are. They're never gonna get the mainstream credit that they perhaps deserve.
No.
People talk about Trent Reznor, but as Nine Inch Nails as a band, yeah, there's something special, and they are completely unique. There is nothing else out there like them. Right. So look, my number one's already been pissed on by the Beauty Queen. So Mastodon Remission. Discovered Mastodon when this album came out. I read a review in Terrorizer magazine, and they gave it 10 out of 10. And we've had some conversations over album ratings and things like that. You know, 10 out of 10 is like, you know, all-time great. 9 out of 10 is, you know, nailed on album of the year kind of thing. But Remission is as close to a 10 out of 10 album as I've heard, I think. And the impact it had on me as well, it opened my eyes, ears to a lot more heavy music and a lot more sort of different subgenres of metal. But like Padre said, stuff like March of the Fire Ants, never heard anything like that before in my life.
How do you write that middle bit?
Fuck knows.
What the fuck is that about? Like, sorry, I don't want to interrupt too much, but like I remember when what was it? It was Download 2004 when Lars Ulrich didn't turn up, and we were in the tent and Mastodon came on, and I was watching them. I thought, this is all right. And I didn't know much about them. I mean, I know you were well into them then, but they played March of the Fire Ants. So I was like, this is all right. And then they played that middle bit, and I immediately just stopped what I was doing, fully focused on them. Like, what the fuck is this? And then when I got home, I was like, I need to look up the tab for this. I need to learn that riff on the guitar. And that, for me, that says it all. If like I'm gonna go away and go, I need to learn that song on the guitar now. That's what I mean. Again, that's just how do you write that fucking song? Seriously.
It's the way the album sort of shifts from crushingly heavy to sort of this delicate, intricate guitar work, and then they reissued it as well later on with the Emerald cover as well, and it's just I don't think there's ever going to be anything else quite like Remission. Mastodon are never going to get close to that. I know people going about Crack the Sky and stuff and all the other bits of Mastodon I've done, but nothing has ever come close to Remission for me. Even the artwork, you know, whatever that is, the sort of dead horse on the cover, it kind of, you look at that and you straight away, you've kind of got an idea of what that album's going to sound like. You know, it's going to be crushingly heavy. I don't know what it is. Every time I go back and listen to it now, I still hear things that I didn't notice 20 years ago.
Sadly enough, though, that I don't know if you saw the article. I can't remember where I saw it. But Mastodon are in actual financial trouble because they weren't able to tour as much because of COVID. And they were saying the other day that the thing that's kept them afloat is, I think it's the guitar player. His wife's got quite a good job, and he's been like sat at home living off that. But like they lost a lot of money because of COVID, and now because of the expense of touring, that it's almost easily $500,000 up front before you go on any kind of tour.
Yeah, and that's probably the case for a lot of bands.
Yeah. So,
which is a really unfortunate thing, and that COVID has probably destroyed that. But off the back of that, just quickly before we go, the Live Nation in the US, have pulled merch cuts for all shows, and they're also putting in $1,500 towards smaller bands and their touring costs. Now, the Live Nation are the world's biggest concert promoters, and this is only in the US, but this is something that we've harped on about a lot on this podcast, and I have done on social media as well. Merch cuts, it fucking winds me up. It is fucking daylight robbery. So for one of the biggest music promoters out there to stop that happening in the US, that's got to be a start of a shift, hopefully.
Yeah. You know what? I want to make a point, although my friend Laura mentioned this point the other day, but huge Metallica fan, so I've got to credit her. But we were talking about gigs because she's seeing Shania Twain in a small nightclub in Kingston tonight doing a solo show. And Tunbridge Wells Forum came up and the topic of merch, because I think her mate supported Conjurer recently down there. I think her theory is that bands basically, because they get 100% of their money at venues like the Tunbridge Wells Forum, they'd rather do small venues like that than bigger venues where they lose 25% of their merch. cuts.
Yeah, completely.
And that's why we're seeing a lot of bands do these smaller venues now, because actually it's better for them financially.
Yeah, exactly. And why the fuck not? At the end of the day, they've got to make a living. They've got to pay for the cost of touring. And yeah, we need to mention Tunbridge Wells Forum because they put out a post on social media backing this up. They don't take merch cuts from artists that are playing in their venue. And I shared that on our Instagram feed and Twitter and Facebook. And it's great to see. I think it is a fucking disgrace. The O2 venues in this country, especially, they're the worst of the lot. And the Academy Music Trust, or whatever they're called, I think in some way are owned by Live Nation anyway. So there's links in there somewhere, whatever it may be. So surely, if they can do it in the US, it can happen in the UK and Europe, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later. Because I'm sorry, but you go to a venue and it's 35 quid for a t-shirt. If you're paying that and every penny goes into the band, you might go, all right, fair enough, I'm helping to fund the band. But when you know 20% of that is going to some fucking corporate cunt, it's fucking disgusting. So look, it's just, look, I'm just glad to see a difference is happening somewhere along those. Hopefully it happens in the UK as well. So yeah,
we'll be the last to see it being fucking.
You probably will.
Backward fuckhole that we are.
Yeah, we probably will, because it's rip off Britain. Any opportunity to fleece people out of their money, it'll happen. We won't shut up about it. We'll keep on harping on about it because it's important. And look, went to see Hell Ripper, paid 15 quid for a t-shirt. You know, and every penny of that's going in James's pocket and paying for the cost of touring and travel and whatever else. You know, it means these bands can keep on playing. So I'm fine with it. I paid 30 quid for an Obituary t-shirt. And as far as I'm aware, there were no merch cuts at that venue, Colchester Arts Centre. So every penny of that was going to Obituary. I'm fine with that. You know, if you know that up front, it's fine. But when you know that someone's taking a cut, it's a fucking piss take. So please, Live Nation, O2, Electric Ballroom in Camden's another one. They take cuts. And I think that's an independent venue. So that needs to stop. All of it. But there you go. Stop ranting now anyway.
Like, stop taking people's merch. And I don't know. Okay, how does it work with then the gate? Who gets the biggest cut of that?
Well, I think it kind of depends on contracts, doesn't it? It all depends. Ticket money is divvied up. Venue, promoter, bands will have a guarantee, or they used to have a guarantee. If they know they'll earn a certain amount per show, but I don't think even that exists anymore. I'd like to know the facts from bands out there. Anyone wants to come on here and talk about it and give us the actual facts of what happens in that transaction, then great. But look, quick plug, you know, we're throwing on a free show in December, as we've talked about, Celestial Sanctuary, All Father. We've got a great opening band to add to that bill next week as well. There's no money involved in that for anybody. It's a 60 capacity venue. We want to throw on a show in Chelmsford. Hopefully people will turn up. It's going to be an absolute fucking riot, but there's no money involved. No one wants to take any money for that. You know, we want bands to sell their merch. We want the bar to make record takings over that night. It's all about, as cheesy as it sounds, it's the spirit of metal. It's what we want to do. So I get that venues have to make an income, and grassroots venues I know are struggling. Get that, because there's been a tax break, I think, isn't there, for entertainment venues in the last few years, which is about to come to an end. So I get that from grassroots venues' point of view. But the bigger promoters and the bigger firms, they need to do something about it. If Tunbridge Wells Forum don't have to take merch cuts from bands, then neither do the O2 venues.
Well, you know, the bands themselves need to stop playing the venues. I mean, like, you know, you could do, rather than play the O2 Arena, you could do a world tour of London. You know, you just like play eight or 9 shows in London, but different, like north, south, east, west, northeast, whatever. You know. Like medium, I'm sure there's some smaller venues in London you could probably do outside of the obvious.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and that's probably possible, but it comes down to time, doesn't it? You know, bands play big venues because they can. It's one night and then they move on to somewhere else. But the tour is coming back. Municipal Waste is about to come out. It's like 12, 13 dates. Obituary 19 dates.
That's amazing, isn't it? They found an extra night for their tour. They played.
Yeah, exactly. In a pub in Milton Keynes. You know,
well, they did this last time, didn't they? They found the opportunity to play a pub in Bristol.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. So, like, fucking happy days. I'm going to stop harping on it, because it'll be a fucking night. But yeah, it had to be mentioned because it's important. We'll see what happens over the next few months. But look, we'll see Municipal Waste on Friday. It'll be interesting to see what merch prices are in that venue, actually, in the Marble Factory in Bristol. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that show. I don't really give a fuck either way. Anyway, we went off on a bit of a tangent, but that was our top 10 that wasn't Appetite for Destruction. Just out of interest, in the top 10, where would Appetite have gone?
Number 1.
There you go.
Because it's I'm sorry,
I'm sorry, it's just not. It's not cliche to put an album like that, in the top, at least in the top 5. It's a special. It's a special album,
Yeah. But that's why we set the rule. So
there's a couple of bands we missed off as well. Like, for example, we didn't put Bonded by Blood by Exodus in. That could maybe have gone in again for impact. Can't really think of any others.
No, there's loads of shouts. So there's Testament. There's fucking. There's
I'm not sure about that first Testament album. No. New World Order's the better album.
I like it, and I like Melissa as well. They might creep into the top 10 further down the line.
Yeah, there's always going to be a few lurking.
Sorry, what is Jester Race is not the first In Flames album, is it?
No, it's not. No, Black Ash Inheritance was effectively the first In Flames album, but
I thought Lunar Strain was.
Well, I suppose Black Ash Inheritance was an EP, technically, I suppose. So yeah, Lunar Strain is probably the debut album full length, but again, it's like Jester Race is probably the first proper In Flames album. Before that, you had Michael Stano on vocals, first album, and then you had the EP. So yeah, that's probably a bit of a shout, but yeah, well, that went wrong.
And then you could even make the case that, like, that band, what did they come out with? That really good debut, the Black Album, that band Metallica. Because that band before that's a different band. Like,
On that note, I'm cutting the episode off. That's it. We're not going down that fucking rabbit hole. Thank you for listening. We're not sure where we'll be next week in terms of episodes. We're going to Bristol for Municipal Waste next Friday. We have got a couple of guests coming up.
Next Friday is not confirmed yet, but it looks like I am actually going into the desert.
Oh, fucking hell. Right, well,
for real.
You go to the desert, we'll go to Bristol, and we'll meet up somewhere.
I'm going into the desert, not for 40 days or 40 nights, and I won't be tempted by Lucifer, but I will be going to the desert to confront some of my demons, to purge myself.
We're going to Bristol. We're going to Bristol, so we'll come out of it worse.
Yeah, we probably will. No, I won't have a word said against Bristol. Anyway, on that note, we'll call it a night before we upset someone. So we'll be back at some point in the next week or so. Like I said, we've got some guests lined up, which should be really fucking cool.
September reviews as well.
Yeah, we need to go back over September's albums because there was just way too many great albums. We will squeeze all this in somewhere over the next couple of weeks, but we will be back either way. So until then, thanks for listening and stay metal.